It began like any other quiet morning in rural Ireland. On Thursday, March 20th, 2025, Michael Gaine, a 56-year-old sheep and cattle farmer from Carrick-East, near Kenmare in County Kerry, started his day early. At around 10 in the morning, CCTV cameras caught him inside White Centra in Kenmare town, where he bought phone credit. He appeared alone, calm. Nothing seemed out of place. That would be the last confirmed sighting of Michael Gaine alive. Michael Gaine wasn't someone who disappeared without reason. He was known as a dependable, quiet man, someone deeply rooted in his land, his animals, and his routines. He loved his farm and checked on his livestock daily. So when he didn't return home that night, his family immediately sensed something was wrong. His wife, Janice, tried calling, no answer. His sister, Noreen, grew alarmed. And by the next day, March 21st, Michael was officially reported missing. When Garde-eve responded to the missing person report, they headed straight to Michael's farm, a separate location from his home, tucked into the hills outside Kenmare. There they found his pickup truck parked near the barn. Inside were some of his personal items, but no wallet, no phone, and no sign of Michael himself. The engine was cold. There were no signs of struggle. It looked as though he had simply vanished. That silence, that stillness only deepened the mystery. Within hours, what started as a local concern turned into a full-scale search operation. Garde-eve, volunteers, rescue units, drones, and even the Irish Army were brought in. They combed miles of rugged terrain around Carrick-East and Kenmare fields, forests, streams, and cliffs. Helicopters scanned from above. Divers searched lakes. Sniffer dogs swept through farmland. But despite one of the largest search efforts Ireland had seen in years, there was still no trace of Michael Gaine. By late April, over 5 weeks had passed. Michael hadn't used his bank cards, phone, or made any contact. Garde-eve had followed more than 300 lines of inquiry, taken 130 witness statements, and reviewed over 2,000 hours of CCTV. Still nothing. Then, on April 29, 2025, Garde-eve announced a major development. The case was no longer being treated as a missing person. It was now a homicide investigation. Michael Gaine was presumed dead, and Garde-eve believed someone had killed him. The decision to reclassify the case wasn't made lightly. Garde-eve had ruled out every innocent explanation: no accident, no medical episode, no voluntary disappearance. They believed someone else was involved in Michael's disappearance. His car hadn't moved. No activity on his accounts. His routine completely broken. Behind the scenes, Garda detectives built a picture. Michael had likely been murdered on or around March 20th, and the person responsible was someone who knew him. On Friday, May 16th, almost 2 months after Michael vanished, a shocking discovery was made. A farm contractor spreading slurry liquefied manure on land near Michael Gaine's farm noticed something horrifying in the muck. Human remains. The machine had pulled up what appeared to be body parts from the slurry. Garde-eve were called immediately. Within hours, the area was sealed off and declared a crime scene. The mystery of Michael Gaine had just taken a dark and disturbing turn. After the remains were found, Garde-eve locked down the area and brought in forensic teams, specialist units, and even the Irish Defence Forces. The search intensified across fields and inside a large underground slurry tank near Michael's farm. Over the weekend, more partial human remains were recovered from the tank and surrounding land. The state pathologist and a forensic anthropologist were called in to oversee the scene. Every inch of the site was now being treated as critical evidence in what had become a confirmed homicide investigation. What shocked many was this: the slurry tank where remains were found had already been searched back in March, during the early days of Michael's disappearance. So how were parts of a body now turning up weeks later? Had the remains been missed? Or more chilling, had someone placed them there after the initial search, hoping the tank would hide the truth? Garde-eve haven't confirmed either theory yet. But one thing is clear: Someone went to great lengths to cover up whatever happened to Michael Gaine. On Sunday, May 18th, Garde-eve made their first arrest in the case. A man in his 50s, described as someone who personally knew Michael Gaine, was taken into custody on suspicion of murder. He had previously spoken to Garde-eve and even allowed them to inspect his property during the early search phase. But now, investigators believed they had reasonable grounds to detain him and question him about Michael's suspected killing. Just 24 hours later, the suspect was released without charge. Under Irish law, Garde-eve can detain someone for questioning, but if they don't have enough evidence to press charges within the allowed time frame, they must let them go. Investigators stressed, the case is far from over. A full file is now being prepared for the Director of Public Prosecutions, and the man could still face charges, but for now, the only named suspect is back in the community. From the start, Michael's wife, Janice, said something was deeply wrong. "This is totally out of character," she told reporters. "Michael loved his farm. He loved his life. He would never just leave." Now, with partial remains recovered, those fears have turned into heartbreak. The remains have not yet been officially confirmed by DNA, but to Michael's family, the silence has already been replaced by grief and a desperate need for answers. How did Michael Gaine die? Was it a planned act or a crime of rage? Why was his body hidden in a slurry tank? And most of all, who did this to him? The fact that the remains were dismembered and scattered raises chilling questions about intent and concealment. Was the person trying to delay discovery? Was this meant to be permanent? Garde-eve believed the killer knew the land and possibly knew Michael very well. Carrick East, Kenmare, Mull's Gap, these are places known for peace, for farming life, not for horror. The discovery of human remains on familiar fields sent shockwaves through this tight-knit rural community. Michael Gaine wasn't just a farmer, he was a neighbor, a friend, someone people trusted. The idea that he may have been murdered, dismembered, and hidden in the very soil he worked for decades is something the locals are still struggling to process. Vigils were held, flowers left at his gate, and signs of mourning appeared all over town. But under that grief, there's a deep unease because someone who walked those same roads may have committed this crime and they may still be walking free. The investigation is far from over. Garde-eve continued to work the case from multiple angles. DNA testing on the recovered remains is underway to formally confirm they belong to Michael Gaine, though few doubt it now. Forensic experts are examining the slurry tank, the surrounding fields, and anything that could offer new clues, even a chainsaw reportedly found on the property. Behind the scenes, investigators are compiling a full case file for Ireland's Director of Public Prosecutions. If the evidence aligns, charges could still follow. But until that happens, the case remains open and Michael Gaine's family remains in limbo, waiting for truth and for justice. It's been months since Michael Gaine was last seen walking into a corner shop in Kenmare, a moment caught on camera, now frozen in time. Since then, his quiet life has turned into one of Ireland's most disturbing criminal investigations. Partial remains found in a slurry tank, a suspect arrested, then released, a family grieving without answers, a community shaken to its core, and somewhere out there, someone still knows exactly what happened on that March morning. The search for justice isn't over. And until it is, the name Michael Gaine will haunt the hills of Kerry, not as a mystery, but as a man who deserves to be heard and whose truth is still buried in silence.